Breaking news from around your world on this Tuesday, June 25th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. President Donald Trump threatened Tuesday to obliterate parts of Iran if it attacked anything American, after Tehran said the latest U.S. sanctions had scuttled any chance of diplomacy, calling the White House actions, quote, mentally retarded. Trump tweeted, Iran's very ignorant and insulting statement put out today only shows that they do not understand reality. Any attack by Iran on anything American will be met with great and overwhelming force. In some areas, overwhelming will mean obliteration. Trump on Monday signed an executive order imposing sanctions against Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and other senior figures, with punitive measures against Foreign Minister Mohammad Zarif expected later this week. The U.S. has imposed crippling financial sanctions against Iran since last year, when Trump withdrew from a 2015 deal between Tehran and world powers, under which it curbed its nuclear program and won a removal of sanctions in return. NATO urged Russia on Tuesday to destroy a new missile before an August deadline and save a treaty that keeps land-based nuclear warheads out of Europe, or face a more determined alliance response in the region. NATO defense ministers will discuss on Wednesday their next steps if Moscow keeps the missile system that the U.S. says would allow short-notice nuclear attacks on Europe and break the 1987 Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Diplomats said defense ministers will consider more flights over Europe by U.S. warplanes capable of carrying nuclear warheads, more military training, and the repositioning of U.S. sea-based missiles. The U.S. and its NATO allies want Russia to destroy its SSC-8 nuclear-capable cruise missile system, which Moscow has so far refused to do. It denies any violations of the INF Treaty, accusing Washington of seeking an arms race. Without a deal, the U.S. has said it will withdraw from the INF Treaty August 2nd, removing constraints on its own ability to develop nuclear-capable medium-range missiles. Europe's main human rights forum on Tuesday approved Russia's readmission, the first time that an international sanction imposed for its seizure of Crimea in 2014 has been reversed, despite a stalling protest from Ukraine and Georgia. The decision, supported by France and Germany as a way of keeping communication open at a time of East-West tension, is a diplomatic boost for Russia, which has spent billions of dollars integrating Crimea but failed to secure Western recognition for its annexation from Ukraine. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe voted by 118 votes to 62 just after midnight to restore Russia's voting rights, suspended in 2014. The European Union continues to oppose Russia's annexation of Crimea and this month renewed punitive economic sanctions on Russia for another year. U.S. Customs and Border Protection Acting Commissioner John Sanders is expected to step down in the coming weeks. News of the resignation came shortly after agency officials disclosed that more than 100 children had been returned to a troubled Border Patrol station in Clint, Texas, a location where a group of lawyers who visited recently said hundreds of minor detainees had been housed for weeks without access to showers, clean clothing, or sufficient food. Sanders had led the agency since President Trump tapped the former Customs and Border Protection Commissioner, Kevin McAleenan, to replace Kirstjen Nielsen as Homeland Security Secretary. Sanders specialized in developing technology for national security initiatives and previously served as the Chief Technology Officer for the Transportation Security Administration. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met Afghan President Ashraf Ghani during an unannounced visit to Kabul Tuesday to discuss ongoing peace talks with the Taliban and the security situation ahead of Afghan presidential polls in September. Pompeo stopped over on his way to New Delhi for meetings with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other officials. His visit to Afghanistan comes ahead of a seventh round of peace talks between Taliban leaders and U.S. officials aimed at finding a political settlement to end the 18-year-old war in Afghanistan. The next round of peace talks is scheduled to begin June 29th in Doha. The talks between the U.S. and Taliban will focus on working out a timeline for the withdrawal of U.S.-led troops from Afghanistan and on a Taliban guarantee that militants will not plot attacks from Afghan soil. The Supreme Court issued a ruling that a law imposing harsher penalties on people who use guns in a crime of violence is unconstitutionally vague. Justices Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, President Trump's two picks for the court, were on opposing sides in the 5-4 decision. Gorsuch sided with the court's 4 liberal justices in the majority. Even the government admits that this language provides no reliable way to determine which offenses qualify as crimes of violence and thus is unconstitutionally vague, Gorsuch wrote for the majority. The vagueness leaves it up to lawyers and judges to decide what qualifies as a crime of violence, but Gorsuch said elected lawmakers should make that determination. Unseasonable warmth has prevailed across much of Europe in June, and a potentially dangerous heat wave will grip parts of Western Europe into this weekend. Much of Europe will experience at least one day of intense heat, with the core of the heat building from Spain into France. Locations from Madrid to Paris, Belgium, Frankfurt, and Berlin can expect several days with high temperatures near or above 32 Celsius or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. In the hottest locations on Wednesday and Thursday, temperatures could approach or surpass 38 Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The combination of this heat and high humidity will create a heat index that will make it feel as if temperatures are even higher than the actual thermometer reading. Major cities like Madrid, Milan, Prague, Munich, and Zurich will experience their highest temperatures of the year so far during this heat wave. The heat could also be a problem for anyone attending Women's World Cup matches taking place in France this week. Illinois is now the 11th state in the nation to legalize recreational marijuana. Governor J.B. Pritzker signed legislation Tuesday in Chicago allowing residents 21 and older to purchase and possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana at a time. Starting January 1st, 2020, Illinois will join 10 other states and the District of Columbia in allowing recreational use. It's been essentially illegal for the past 80 years and, since 1970, has been federally banned as a narcotic. But Pritzker made legislation a main tenet of his campaign for governor last fall. Nearly 24 states have pursued legalization in the past 2 years. Efforts in New York and New Jersey fizzled this spring. Pennsylvania officials proposed it, but it never got off the ground. SpaceX launched its heftiest rocket with 24 research satellites Tuesday, a middle-of-the-night rideshare featuring a deep space atomic clock, solar sail, a clean and green rocket fuel testbed, and even human ashes. It was the third flight of a Falcon Heavy rocket, but the first ordered by the military. It marked the military's first ride on a recycled rocket. Both side boosters landed back at Cape Canaveral several minutes after liftoff, just as they did after launching in April. But SpaceX said the new core booster missed an ocean platform and was lost. SpaceX noted that it was not unexpected for this especially difficult mission. SpaceX did manage for the first time to catch the fairing, or nose cone, in a giant net on an offshore boat. The California-based company is trying to recover and reuse as many rocket parts as possible to drive down launch costs. NASA signed up for a spot on this Falcon Heavy, along with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the Air Force Research Laboratory, the Planetary Society, and Celestis Incorporated, which offers memorial flights into space. And that's your update for this Tuesday, June 25th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.